Morning, Ruvain. And he's been there ever since. She was the educational director for many, many years. And then she went on to take a position, an academic position at the university.
The first time I ever heard of reconstruction is I was at a conference to work, and there's no kosher food. And then somebody said, "Oh, there's a Jewish group over there that has kosher food." And they had, and first I saw one guy looked regular with a black hatter, and he said, "Oh, you could take some food from our food. It's lot kosher, everything is good." And then I went there, and then I saw somebody without a yarmulke, a lady with a yarmulke. They are the most diverse group you could ever imagine.
Right. Okay, year of learning, Suanar Nigerlik in memory of Malka Proman and Philip Man. Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Beryl ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Yosef Meir ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Henya Rivka Pro Rosna bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch. In memory of family murdered in the Holocaust, Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Miriam ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Leslie and Gail Kaplan in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Sedell, Irving and Pearl Kaplan. Children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael Dov in her memory. Charlie Gelfenstein and Sam Levine in memory of Ramona Levine. Rachel Mata bat Asher. Friends of Nina Monester, Nechama Azna bat Yitzchak Aharon. Many friends of Stephen Vigdal, Zecher Nishmat, Simcha Melech ben Meir Leib Halevi. Friends of Marcy Kurtz in memory of her great niece, Leah Bruch. A month of learning by Lydia and Abe Krause's many friends in honor of their 50th anniversary. David and Mendel Cheslow in memory of his father, Moshe Ruvain ben Mordechai. Moshe ben Ruvain Mordechai. Susan and Ruvain Podolsky in memory of her father, Simcha Bunam ben Yeshua. A week of learning by David and Sharon Karpel, Rabbi Tzvi and Robin Karpel, in memory of David and Tzvi's mother, Malka Bas Mordechai. Dr. Mark Scher, in memory of his father, Mordechai ben Menachem Manish. Ruth Kosman, in memory of her husband, Shmuel ben Yitzchak. Carol and David Kaplan, in memory of Hannah and Ron Goldberg's daughter, Tamar Yenta bat Yerachmiel Yitzchak. Judy Iger, in memory of her husband, Aaron ben Shlomo Michael. Hanya and Shmuel Novik, in memory of her father, Zeb ben Shimshon. Meir and Sarah Berabin, Michael and Golda Brebin, in memory of Meir and Michael's mother, Bela bat Elimelech. Isaac and Eda Novik, in memory of his father, Eliezer Yaakov ben Mordechai Tzvi. We have, today's the 20th, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We have no other days of learning today. And Shamas have an aliyah, crank rafia, velti yeshua shamat tzliya, and the chol b'nei Israel good geben shtia. Ruvain, you with us, right? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Very good. Give me a minute to put my ears in and we'll go. All right. You know why one always goes out sooner than the other. Then I have to. I think when you put the batteries in the same time that they would both go out the same time. That's not like that. We're on Mem Daled, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the Gemara, right? Okay. So when we go through this Gemara, we're going to start off with what I'll call a linguistic issue of the language of the Mishnah. All right? Just the Mishnah wanted to Right, it is. The Mishnah said, Arba'a achin nesu'in arba nashim umetu. And remember, I pointed out when we did it yesterday, if you had all four brothers die at the same time, you'd have nobody to do yibum. Okay? So that's really where the it's going to start us off before it gets into the what I'll call the tachlis of the Mishnah discussion. Okay. So arba'a achin sakadata. You really think it was four brothers? As I said, that they died all at the same time. Ela'ema, I would say arba'a me achin, four of the brothers. In other words, we've got to assume that maybe there were 5, 6, 7 brothers in that family, and then that was the situation. Harashut biyado. That was where we said he could do a yibum with all 4 wives. Okay, and the Gemara says, Vishav Kele, they're really going to allow him to do that, so to speak? Okay, Vahatanya, aren't we taught elsewhere in a Braita? The Karulos, the K'nei Iro, that the elders of the city would, let's say, give him advice. Hain velo they and not any representatives of them, right? With Hebrew love, and they would speak to him. What would they speak to him? Milamed shemasi'im lo etza, genet lo. That they would share with him appropriate advice, namely appropriate to him, to his situation. I'm going to point that. She'im hayahu yeled, if he was a younger person, v'hi and one of the women was an older woman, hu zakain v'hi yelda, or he was an older person and there was among them a younger woman. Omrim lo, they would say to him, Malacha etzel yada, Malacha etzel zakena. You know, what the business is it of yours to have relations with a younger woman or with an older woman? Kelech etzel shekmotcha. Go and be by one that is more fitting for you in terms of your age situation. Va'al tasim kitata b'veitecha, and don't create any kind of discord in your home. Okay, don't look for trouble. With 4 wives, you don't think you'd have trouble? That's the point the Gemara is going to ultimately get to. No, lo tzricha. No, we do need to say this. In other words, why? The efsharle, because it's possible. All right, theoretically, he could do yibum with all 4. Okay, but the problem is going to also be, don't we say, okay, in another situation, that if you do yibum with one and there's a tzara, okay, it's poter the tzara. Okay, so we might even ask the question here, even though these are 4 separate brothers, 4 separate yibamot, right? Isn't there any chance of he has to break each of these zika with each? Ihachi, tuvanami. Okay, if that's the case, maybe even more. So the Gemara is going to give some practical advice. Eitza tova kamashmala. It's really giving appropriate advice. Arba en, 4 wives, yes, that might work. Tfei, more than that, no. Okay. Now the question is why 4 wives? The Gemara is kihecha teya ona b'chodesh. Why? Because that way, I'm going to translate it, that the husband could satisfy his conjugal obligation, right, to each of the 4 wives, 1 per week, right? So, right, in a month.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
but that means one
is a week, so you got 4, so you got 4 weeks. That
Yeah.
takes care of the month.
Right. Okay. All right.
What the Gemara was talking about until now was how can one guy afford to support 4 wives? So and it's just, okay, maybe he was rich. Yeah. If he was rich, maybe he can have even more than 4. What's the problem?
Yeah.
But this is the issue.
Right. Okay. So, amazing.
But this is assuming that that he can have only sex once a week.
Yeah. But
Well, if he was, the idea is that a Talmid Chacham only does once a week on Friday night in order to fulfill the obligation. Okay, and so therefore, assuming that each wife was appropriately available, okay, a different week of the month. Okay? Right.
What
But
about-
it's interesting that the Gemara doesn't go into that.
what happens if he's
Yeah.
an Amoritz?
Okay, but what happens if one of the wives is in Nida? All right, doesn't even discuss that.
So it's really talking
No.
about
Right? Okay. Okay, so the Gemara continues now. Misha hayan nasui v'chud. What about one who was married? V'niya beim l'travayu. So that's the situation now of the two wives. Okay, in that situation, let him do yibum with both of them, suggests the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. In the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Kra. Our pasuk says, Asher lo yivne et beit achiv. That, in other words, so that the question of rebuilding the house in the singular of his brother. Okay? Beit echad hu boneh ve'ein boneh shnei batim. It's a single, I'll call it household, that he is expected to rebuild, and not multiple households. So Gemara suggests v'nachalot l'travayu. So let him do chalitza to both of them. Amar Mar, says Zutras, he says, Bartuvia, the following. Amar Kra, again we cite the pasuk. Ubeit chalutz hana'al. Okay, again we have the singular beit chalutz hana'al. Bayit echad hu choletz, ve'ein choletz shnei batim. That to one household he can do chalitza, but not to two households. Okay, so the Gemara now suggests, v'niyabeim lechada, v'nachlotz lechada. So let him do yibum to one and chalitza to one. Amar Kra, says a pasuk, im lo yachpotz. But it says if he does not choose to do so. Ha chafetz yiyabein. If he chooses, let him do yibum. V'chol ha'oleh liyibum oleh lechalitza. And we have a principle that says one who is suitable for yibum should also be suitable for chalitza. Kol she'eno leyibum. And if she is not suitable for yibum, eno lechalitza, she is therefore considered not suitable, right, for chalitza. Va'od, and furthermore, says the Gemara, shelo yomru bayit mikzato banui umikzato chalutz, that they won't say that in regarding his whole household, a portion of it is rebuilt and a portion of it is left chalitza. V'yomru, and they might say as follows. Okay, I the miyabem v'hadar chalitz hachinami. If he does yibum first and then afterwards to the second wife, okay, does then chalitza, here too, right? Ela Dilma, but perhaps he's going to do it in the wrong order. Chalitz v'hadar miyabein. That he might do chalitza first accidentally, okay, to the wife he's less interested in, let's say, and then do yibum. And what happens there? V'kam le below yivneh. And as a result, once he does chalitza, that's poter, remember, the other wife, and therefore, in a sense, there is no fulfillment of the mitzvah of yibum because there is no production of a possible
also
progeny.
the second wife the Ereva comes back, the head to marry your brother's wife is off now because there's no mitzvah of yibum anymore.
Okay, ve'ema, and I might say here too, ki ikachada. Okay, when we have one, titkayem mitzvat yibum, let him fulfill the mitzvah of yibum. Ki ikatarte, if there are two wives, lo titkayem mitzvah yibum. It's possible then that the mitzvah of yibum won't be fulfilled, right? Imkain, if that's the case, sarat erva, da'asar rachmana lamali. If we have that view, why then do we need a pasuk, okay, that makes it clear that the co-wife of an erva, according to the Torah, okay, we said cannot do Yibum, right? So why do we need that pasuk, right? Hashta shtayim ba'alma amarta. Okay, lav b'nei chalitza v'yibum ninhu. Okay, here we say that two in general. You might say that they are not suitable, excuse me, for chalitza or yibum. Tzarat erva mibaye. Are we therefore necessary then to clearly say that the co-wife of an erva is required? Alma lo. Therefore, I might say no. It's tarich. No, the Gemara says no. That second pasuk, okay, clarifying tzarat erva, okay, is necessary because of the following. Saka da'atach mina. It's possible I might have thought to say the following. Erva abrai kaima. Okay. And in this case, I'm just looking at my note again. Okay. That by using the word abrai, that she's, so to speak, outside, meaning ineligible.
Right.
Okay. And therefore it's more like a single wife. Right. Maybe that's what we might say in that situation. But tzarata. So go ahead and do a yibum with the co-wife. Kamash malan da asira comes to teach us, therefore, that is asur, that is forbidden. Okay? All right, so the Gemara picks up. Ella, rather, yavamto riba. No, our psukim has the word yavamto twice. And therefore, you see that as a reason to have to say also that you have to deal with in two wives, you have to deal with the status of each of them. Okay? Even if you only do yibum to one, you still therefore are dealing with the status of the second, all right? Because then she would be, so long as it's not erva, okay, the first one, it's still dealt with that her status, right? Okay. So, all right. So let's pick up then. All right. Ela yivamto riba. Okay. So now the Gemara tells us, Haita echat kshera. It said, what about if one of the two women was suitable? All right. All right. All right, and this Gemara, I made a note about the fact that needlessly disadvantaged the other. Okay? Amar Rav Yosef, he says, Kan Shana Rebbe. Here Rebbe taught the following. Right? Lo yishpoch adam me boro va'acherim tzrichim lahem. Okay? Says Rebbe, one shouldn't pour out the water when others have need of it. In other words, that was the example, if I remember the Gemara, where we talked about when she was fit. In other words, do you do it to the woman if there's a possibility of her being exempted from the marriage, from the zakukah situation, okay, and then still being eligible to marry a Kohen? Okay, why disadvantage her by making her, so to speak, on a limited market? Okay, all right.
What we're talking about is that one woman was already possible to the kahuna,
Yeah,
before this marriage to this brother.
and therefore,
let's say she was a garusha
right,
from before. She married this guy, and
right,
he had another wife, and then he died, and they
right.
left over these two women. So one is to the kahuna
But
already.
lechatchila, she's
Lechatchila,
possible, and
right.
so therefore,
And this guy now, the surviving brother, doesn't want to make even, wants to do chalitza. So
right.
which one should he
So
do chalitza
why
to?
do chalitza, right? So do chalitza to the one who's
The ones already
lechatchila
possible.
psula to the
Already
kun.
Right, second
Right,
Yeah, that's
exactly. That's the point.
Don't waste something that's something
That it could still, right. In other words, it limits her availability to the,
Right.
but you've got to remember, we've got to remember that example of the kahuna, because that's the best case
Right.
to tie in to explain this. Okay. All right. Our new Mishnah. Okay. Hamachzir grushato. One who takes back his wife And we've got to remember this deals with after she's married somebody else. Okay?
No, before. He can't take her back after she's married somebody.
That's what we're going to see. Okay? So
Well,
here
she did
it's
marry somebody already. That's
so
the
she,
problem.
in other words, she was married to X. She
Right.
divorced him. Then she got married to Y.
Why? Right.
Right? Divorced him. X cannot take her back. That's what the Gemara is explaining. Okay, and in addition, another status, Vahanosei chalutzato, one who marries the woman he did chalitza with. Third example, Vahanosei krovat chalutzato, or he marries a relative of the woman he did chalitza with. Yotzi, in all those cases, he must divorce her. Vahavlad mamzer divrei Rabbi Akiva. But the progeny, if born from any of those situations, according to Rabbi Akiva, that progeny is a mamzer. V'chachamim omrim, but the sages say, ein havlad mamzer, that the child is not a mamzer. Okay? Umodim benosei krovat gerushato, but they do agree with Rabbi Akiva in a situation where one married the relative of his divorced wife, shehavlad mamzer, that in that case, the progeny is a mamzer. Now, Gemara is gonna, right, pick up. V'savar Rabbi Akiva, hanosei kruvat chalutzato, havlad mamzer. Does Rabbi Akiva really believe, excuse me, that marrying the relative of the woman he did chalitza with, okay, and then having a child with her, that child is a mamzer? Right? Okay, but even so, that's a pretty strong position, right? Vama Reish Lakish. Okay, Kan Shana Rebbe, that Rebbe taught here, Achot Grusha. What he's referring to here is the sister of a woman that he divorced, Midivrei Torah. In that case, all right, we would say it's a Torah mandated, okay, prohibition. Achot chalutza, but whereas the sister of the woman he did chalitza with, Midivrei Sofrim, as you said, Avrami, it's so to speak, only, okay, a rabbinic prohibition. Why does he say then that it's a mamzer? Exactly, right? Tani, but we learn as follows: Krovat gerushato, the relative of his divorced wife, hachanami mistabra.
Instead of kruvat chalutzato, it should be kruvat.
It should be grusha, sorry.
Let's teach it then as Kruvat Grushato.
Right.
And this seems logical, I'm going to say, as if to amend the text. All right? Why? The Katani Sefer. Because it says later at the end, Umodim benosei Kruvat Grushato shehavlad mamzer. Because there it says that the sages do agree with Rabbi Akiva that when it's marriage to the relative of his divorced woman, that the vlad there is a mamzer. So that's the proof that it seemed to be viable to correct the language of the Mishnah. Right? Iyamart b'shleima ba. Okay, if you're going to say that this is the case we're dealing with, Haini Katani Umodim, then therefore it seems appropriate that our Mishnah taught that acknowledged. Ella Iyamart lo ba. If you're saying they're not dealing with this case, namely of the Grusha, then my Umodim. Why then did our language in our Mishnah say that they acknowledge? Dilma hakamash malan. Maybe it comes to teach us here. Diyesh mamzer michayve kritut. That there is the status of progeny of mamzerut from those where we have prohibitions regarding kares, right? Hakatani la lekaman, as taught further on. Ezehu mamzer. Okay, namely, how do we define then this mamzer? Kol sha'ar basar shahu below yavo divrei Rabbi Akiva. I'm going to translate sha'ar basar as blood relative here, okay? Where it says you should not go, in other words, not have relations. Divrei Rabbi Akiva, that's the view of statement of Rabbi Akiva. That seems like it would be right. The Chaim, it's a simple, right? Just a general law. Okay, that's the point. And remember, we've had this discussion previously.
Before.
Right, exactly, Reuven. Right, Rabbi Shimon Hatimani. All right, what did he say? Omer, kol shechayavin alav karet biyadei shamayim. That he would define progeny as mamzeret only where there is a love with the punishment of karet by heaven. V'halacha kidvarav. And the law is like what he said. Okay, so what happens? V'dilma kasatim lan tana k'Rabbi Shimon Timani. Maybe here, when the Tana made it a stam statement, he made it according to the view of Rabbi Shimon Timani. Imkain, if that's the case, then the Mishnah should have taught it this way. Litnei sha'ar chai ve'kritut. Let them teach it in regards to the other obligations with kritut. Krovat grushato lamali. Then why here do we have to spell out when we say it's the relative of his divorcee, right? Elashmamina ireba. But let's learn from this that they teach it here. V'dilma la'olam lo ireba. And perhaps they didn't bring it here. Va'ide ditana machzir grushato. And the fact that they taught that he takes back his divorced wife. V'nosei chalutzato. And he marries the woman he did chalitza with. Ukravat chalutzato. And the relative of the woman he did chalitza with. Tani nami kruvat grushato. Therefore, he also happened to teach regarding the relative of a divorced woman. Ele krovat chalutzato. LaRabbi Akiva, have mamzer. But here he specifically taught something, a chiddush, namely that for Rabbi Akiva, the relative of the woman he did chalitza with is a mamzer. What happens? Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. He said as follows, Hainu ta'amad Rabbi Akiva. This is the reasoning behind Rabbi Akiva's perspective. The Amakra, because the pasuk says, Beit Chalutz Hana'al. Okay, the household of removing the shoe. Hakatuv Kira'u Beito. And the pasuk referred to as his household. Amar Rav Yosef. In other words, to the household of the one who performed chalitza. Okay, so that's why Rabbi Akiva understood it to mean that individual, that Yabam, therefore is prohibited, okay, in marrying a relative of his chalutza woman, of his Amar Rav Yosef, says Rav Yosef, Amar Rabbi Shimon Berebbe, he said as follows, Hakol modim b'machzir grushato. Everyone is in agreement, okay, that one who takes back his divorced woman after she's married somebody else, right? The second man, what? Shehavlad pagum lekuhuna, that he is, let's call him inappropriate, a derelict. He is disqualified, right, from kuhuna. Man hakom modim. What do we mean when we say everybody is in agreement? Shimon HaTimoni. We're referring to Shimon HaTimani. the Afal Gav, the Amar Shimon Hatimani, Ein Mamzer Mechayve Lavin, even though Shimon Hatimani does not hold like Rabbi Akiva, I'll throw that in, right? That Mamzerut does not come about simply as a result of a general lav, right? Nehi, the mamzer lo have, that in that case he would not be a mamzer. Pagum miyahave, nevertheless, he would have this disqualification, right? Mikal v'chomer mi'almana, and he learns it based on the example of the almana, of a widow. Uma almana lekohen gadol, whereas we see there that regarding a widow, vis-a-vis the Kohen Gadol, she'ein isura shaveh b'kol, that her prohibition is not equal to all. In other words, she has a prohibition to the Kohen Gadol, but not to other men, right? Right? Or other men in general, right? Bana pagum, in this case, her son from relations with that Kohen Gadol would be disqualified, right? Zo she'isura shaveh b'kol. But one then whose prohibition, okay, is such to all, let's say other Kohanim and certainly
No.
other men.
The Machzor Gerushaso is Shava Bakol. Somebody who remarries his divorce is Shava Bakol. So for sure the child should be Pogum.
Right. So there, where in that situation, okay, she is right prohibited to all. Okay, although I want to come back to that afterwards. Okay, no din shebana pagum. Is it not logical then that her son then would be disqualified as well? Okay, that's the attempted kal v'chomer. Ikala mifrach, however, says the Gemara, it's possible to challenge this. Ma la'almana, whereas regarding the almana, shekain hi atzma mitchalelet, that she herself desecrates herself with this marriage, right? Va'od, and furthermore, the Torah says, hi toava, that kind of an act is an abomination, kati. Ve'ein baneha toavim, but her sons are not considered toavim, abominations. Va'od, and furthermore, Tanya, it's also taught elsewhere in a Braita, hamachzir grushato, one who takes back his divorced wife after she married somebody, right? Vahanosei chalutzato, or married his chalutza woman. Vahanosei krovat chalutzato, or he married the relative of the woman he did chalitza with, right? Rabbi Akiva Omer, says Rabbi Akiva, ein lo ba kiddushin. There really is not even a valid marriage in that situation. Ve'einat tzricha himenu get, and she does not even need a get. Vehi psula uvlada pasul, and she is psula, she is disqualified, and the progeny is disqualified. V'kofino tolahotzi, and we force him in those situations to send her away, to send her out. V'chachamim omrim, but the sages say, yesh lo ba kiddushin, that it is a valid marriage. Utzricha himenu get, and therefore she does need a get to dissolve that marriage, right? Vehi kshera uvlada kshera, and she is kshera. Okay, I'm going to just use that term as she is valid. Question we're going to have to think about, valid for what, right? And the child is valid. Leman, for what? Love the kahuna? Is it not for the kahuna? Lo, says the Gemara. Lekahal. She's valid to be part of the Jewish people.
The child is not a mamzer.
and the child is not a mamzer, right? If that's the case, hikshara, that when we say she is valid, leman, for what purpose? Ilema lekahal pshita. If we say she's valid to be part of the Jewish people, isn't that obvious? Mishum dezanya afsala lekahal. Are you going to say simply because of promiscuity, we're going to make her invalid to be part of the Jewish people? Ela lav the kahuna. Rather, it must be referring then to the kahuna. Umedehi lekahuna, vladanami lekahuna. And if you're applying this for her to kahuna, regarding the child also to the kahuna, mide area. Okay, is that really the case? Ha kedeita. Here, this is one case. Vaha kedeita. And here, this is another case. Hachinami mistabra. And this seems logical. The katani resha, because we learned in the beginning of our text, he psula uvlada pasu, that she is invalid and the child is invalid. He psula laman, she is invalid for what purpose? Ilema lekahal, if you say that she is invalid to the Jewish population, mishum dezanya afsalale lekahal, because of promiscuity, are we going to say we're making her invalid to be part of the Jewish people? Ela lav lekuhuna. Is it not then that we're saying that she then becomes invalid to have any further relation with a Kohen? Vlada pasu. And when we say now in this case that the progeny is invalid, leman, for what purpose? Ilema lekahuna. If we're going to say to the kahuna, ha lakal kasher, do we say then that he is valid for the populace?
If you,
Right?
right,
Okay.
if in other words, if you say that the it's possible kahuna, but it's kahal kosher, but then the implication is that it's not a mamzer, it's only,
Right.
and that's what the Gemara is saying. Avalakal kosher.
Right.
And then the Gemara has a kasher. Amar Rakiva.
Right. So that's the question. Although the text I had made lakal kasher with a question mark and not an exclamation mark.
Okay.
Amar Rabbi Akiva, Havlad Mamzer. There I get the exclamation mark. Right. But Rabbi Akiva
Right.
says the child is a mamzer. Ela pshita. But it must be obvious the kahal that he's eligible, valid for the population. Right? Right?
Also for the call.
Right? If according to Rabbi Akiva, but not according to the Chachami. Okay? Umideresha hakadeita v'hakadeita. And from the beginning of our text, it says this is one case and this is the other case. Right? She's pasul right to the kahuna, and the child, right? He would be pasul to the kahal. Okay, assuming that we take Rabbi Akiva's position. Okay? Seifanami, the end also. Hakadeita v'hakadeita. Here, this is in one case, and here, this is the other case. All right. So what happens? But the Torah text told us vehi toava, that she is an abomination. Nami hi toava ve'en sarata toava. She may then be a toeva, but the Sarah, the co-wife, is not.
No, her children. He toeva be'ein boneha toa.
But that would then imply that her children are abominable.
Are not. She is the toeva, and her children are not.
The children are
Toavim. Ela almana kasha. But therefore that comes back to problematic to what we tried to learn above as the initial proof text. That's problematic in regarding to that widow. Mala almana, shakein hi atzma mitchalelet. Fine, says the Gemara. With the case of a widow, we can say that she, in a sense, desecrates herself with that marriage to the Kohen Gadol. Ela I itmar. But if that's what's said, hachi itmar. This is how we have to say it. Amar Rav Yosef. Says Rav Yosef Amar Rabbi Shimon Berebbe. In the name of Rabbi Shimon Berebbe. Hakol modim. Everybody is in agreement. Bebo al chayve kritut shehavlad pagum. That one who has relations with somebody where there's a lav punishable by kritut, that it's clear that that progeny is pagum, that he's invalid. Man, what hakol modim? What do we mean when we say they all agree? Rabbi Yeshua, the afal gav the amar Rabbi Yeshua, that it's Rabbi Yeshua, that despite the fact that Rabbi Yeshua says as follows, ein mamzer mechayve kritut, that Rabbi Yeshua, doesn't even hold that relations among a man and a woman where there is a lav subject to the punishment of kritut, even that progeny is not a mamzer. Okay? In that case, right? The ein mamzer mechayve kritut nehi mamzer lo have pagum. That in that case, right? Right?
Mamzer lo have, but
Mamzer
pogum
lo have pagum mihahave. Okay, that he wouldn't be a mamzer, but he still nevertheless has the status of a pagum.
correct.
Right? Oh, absolutely. Kal v'chomer. Okay, from the kal v'chomer me almana. Uma almana, the Kohen Gadol, she'ein isura shaveh bakom. And whereas that of the almana married to a Kohen Gadol, that prohibition does not apply, so to speak, to all. Bana pagum zo she'isura shaveh bakom. But the fact that her son would be invalid, that prohibition does apply to all. Eino din shebana pagum. Is it not then logical that her son would be pagum? V'chitema. And if you want to say, umala almana tekein hi atzma mitchalelet hachanami, that whereas here regarding the woman that she desecrates herself with that marriage, here too, kevan sheba'ala asa zona. Since the situation with the husband, okay, we make it similar to the status of a zona. Amar Rabba Bar. Okay, so that ends that. New piece. All right. I want to go on just a tiny bit. Okay. What happens? Amar Rabba Bar Barchana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Okay. Let me just check our. Too much in my pocket. Okay, we'll finish up in a moment. Okay, hakomodim, all right, be'eved, va'oved kochavim. Okay, everybody's in agreement regarding a servant and a Gentile. Haba'al bat Yisrael, who has relations with a Jewish woman, shahavlad, that the progeny is a mamzer. Man hakol. What do we mean when we say all? Modim Shimon Hatimani. What? Man hakol modim. What do we mean when we say they all agree? Shimon Hatim. The afal gav the amar Shimon Hatimoni ein mamzer michayve lavin. Though he says there is no prohibition regarding a general lav that could create somebody as a mamzer. Hani mili mechayve lavin de tafse baho kedushin. This is only situations where we, even though we have a lav, the marriage is still a valid marriage. Okay, aval hacha here with regards to Oved Kochavim, Va'evid regarding a Gentile or a servant, Kevan de lo tafse baho kedushin, since we say the marriage is not a valid marriage whatsoever, kechayve kritu dami. It's like a chayve kritut in that case. Okay, so that's Rabbi Shimon Atimani, and therefore, okay, what is his statement?
By high increases, the kedushin is not kal.
It's not
Similarly, by a guy,
Right.
that creates the mamzer.
that creates the mamzeres. So in that situation, even Rabbi Shimon ben Tamani would
Would
say
be moda.
we do have a mamzer situation. Exactly. Okay.
Mamzer is a very bad thing.
Uh,
Yeah, it doesn't go away.
Well, yes, it could
How do
ultimately,
you get, yeah?
because if a mamzer marries a mamzeret,
Yeah.
okay, then the next generation child
Is good. Doesn't go through generations.
an Eved is different.
They have a child, so